Rob Brown, are you there?
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to Bayloric TV.
Oh, and thank you so much for allowing me back on after the terrible, disastrous first interview. I'm privileged to be back on here to be given a second chance.
Let's remember the last time we did the interview, I think you were just starting to get into the groove of interviewing. So, you know, I think you can be forgiven for that.
Yeah, well, I always felt guilty about that first interview. I mean, I was so nervous back then. I spent first half of it talking about cricket. So, I mean, but I'm glad to be back on again. Much more experienced now. Be glad to be given a second chance, and I'll give you a great interview, I promise.
I'm sure the fans are going to enjoy it. First of all, people are going to say, who's Rob Brown? Is he a boxer? Is he who is he? So, Rob, give us a bit of background as to who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm an idiot. That's the first thing. But I started, I guess, 4 years ago now. My first article was December the 27th, 2010. I mean, it's funny how you don't forget those dates. Started with Eastside Boxing, and my first article was Katsidis the Great versus the Mexican Matador, which was a fight analysis on Katsidis versus Marquez. I did a fight analysis on that. I think I got it wrong by one round. I said late rounds, and late rounds are 11 and 12, and Marquez knocked Katsidis out in 10, so that was a pretty good start for me. First start, I started there, I guess.
It's always good to get a prediction right.
Yeah. Yeah, and how I started was basically, if you want me to get real deep, about 5 or 6 years ago there, I was in a hell of a place. I was depressed. You know, when you spend your whole life in a wheelchair and you have to get somebody get you up, put you in the shower, dress you, do all those things, and your dignity feels like it's stripped away. And you know, I had other problems. I had financial problems and health problems. And I didn't say this to you in the first interview, but I'm ready to show you now. It seems a long time ago now because I'm a different person, but 6 or 7 years ago, Ingram, I wanted to end it all. I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to fold up the tents because I had health problems, and plus I had enough of being in a wheelchair and enough about how difficult life was, and I just wanted to end it all. And, you know, I found Jenna at the right time, who basically saved my life, and I got into boxing writing and gave me a purpose, and it started from there. But I was this close to ending it all. I mean, I sat in my house for an hour near the kitchen, you know, holding a knife in my hand, and thought, you know, I'm going to end this. But I guess what stopped me and what resurrected me was because I said to myself, well, if you're going to end it, don't be a pussy. Call your mother and tell her you're going to do it. So, you know, I called my mother on the phone, and she answered the phone, said hello a couple of times, and I couldn't do it, and I hung up the phone, and basically my life resurrected from there. And I also said to myself, actually, in that moment of darkness, in that moment of real lowness, you know, I hadn't really earned the right, as funny as it sounds, to kill myself, because I knew I hadn't given my life a fair crack, and a lot of my darkness was a lot, you know, self-driven, and I thought, I've got to give my life a fair crack before I start whinging about it. And I found Jenna, and boxing came into my life, started from there.
So, for those who don't know who Jenna is, and Jenna does some excellent work in boxing, let people know a bit more about Jenna.
she's done, in my opinion, she's one of the best boxing journalists in the world. Of course, I'm going to say the best because I'm biased. She's my boss, and I don't want to get my ass kicked. Yeah, she's been doing that for 5 years. She's interviewed unbelievable amount of world champions, Hall of Fame. She had the privilege of interviewing Emmanuel Stewart 26 times, and there are some unbelievable classic great interviews. She's interviewed Floyd Mayweather Sr. Over 30 times, and she's just really, really dedicated to her craft and really, really driven. And really, I've seen that since I've known her, since it was 2021. I was blown away at how driven she was, and I thought, well, if I've got this in me, if I want to really get as far as I can get, my job is to, attach myself to her like a leech, and hopefully she'll take me on. And she did, and I've sort of gone from there. But I will tell you something about Jenna. If you going to survive with her in her life as a proper friend, you got to toe the line, and you've got to keep coming back and getting better, which is what I've done. Otherwise, you're not going to keep up with Jenna. You're going to fall off the cliff. I'm still going.
Yeah, you need people like that in your life to push you on and to motivate you. And Jenna's excellent at what she does. I've done quite a few. I think I did 2 crossover interviews with her. Plus, we did some commentating on Malky Mayweather. He's the best PS3 fighter in the world on Fight Night Champion. Had a record of 123-0. And myself and Jenna were on that as well. And Jenna is very good. She's got a great interviewing technique. Her knowledge of the game is superb and not pretentious. Very grounded girl. And it's all about the hard work with her. All about the hard work. And it's not about her as the person. You really get to know about what the fighter, the trainer, the organisation have to say. So, Jenna is definitely inspiration for even Bayloric TV as well. Jenna, if you're listening, shout out to Jenna James.
But let me tell you something about Jenna. She might look like the girl from Wonder Years, the Winnie Cooper type, the girl that you can you go over to her house and ask for a cup of sugar and she'll probably give you one. But, she's just this, it's a bit of a trick that she's so driven and so ruthless and so,
you've got to be. Let's be honest, Rob. You've got to be, because in this world, especially with boxing interviews and getting people to do interviews with, you need to have a certain lead in your back, because it's not about just going out there and getting interviews. Sometimes you need to start asking certain questions which come from the gut, and sometimes those questions can put you in some uncomfortable positions. So someone like Jenna doing what she does, and the way she's done it, and the amount of things she's done, and sit down and talk to Emmanuel Stewart will not spend his time talking to a donut. So I think it's self-explanatory that Jenna does a hell of a lot of great work.
But where I wanted to, what I wanted to expand on a little, and what I wanted to sort of get to, and how that relates to me, is because it doesn't matter that we have a friendship or whatever the case may be. When it's work, it's work and it stays work. And if I've done something or if I've delivered something, and Artie, thankfully it hasn't been for several months, it hasn't been for a while, but if I've delivered something under my potential, boy, by God, will she go through me like Drano, and I'll hear about it. And she has no qualms about telling me where it's at, but I'll take that because I know it's coming from
a good heart,
a positive angle.
Absolutely.
And she wants me to get the best out of me that I can be. But boy, let me tell you, there is a lot of people that would not be able to handle 1/10 of what she's given me on certain occasions, but in every occasion it's been warranted and it's been needed, and thankfully for me, I've taken that and gone forward. But I just want to tell people out there, if you're going to hang with Jenna or you're after someone like Jenna as a mentor, you're going to have to handle what's going to come back.
Absolutely. For people who want to know more about Jenna or to see your work, where do they go to, Rob?
They can go to On the Ropes Boxing radio.com. I hope I got that right, because I used to always bugger the website I work for up, if you can believe that. But that's correct, and you can see all the shows there. You can see all my interviews. I'm not sure how many I've done there, but I've done quite a lot, and most of them all this year that I've really decided to put my foot down. And it's a great show. I think we're winding up the year. I don't want to put my foot on. I think Jenna's got one more show left. I've got an interview. I've just done an interview with Antonio Tarver, and I've got an interview with Mike Hercules Weaver, coming up with some very interesting revelations in England, particularly about the first Michael Dokes fight and the controversial stoppage. So I'll just leave you with that. But yeah, there's some things coming out, so keep your eyes peeled on that.
Absolutely, sounds interesting. So I remember the last time we spoke, and I think I remember saying to you, "Don't worry, the next time we do an interview, you'll be in a better place." And I believe that now was the time to get that interview. And since we spoke last, in terms of the interview, give us a rundown of the sort of people you've spoken to.
Oh my, there's too many. I recently had a real highlight. I interviewed a Hall of Famer, Larry Holmes. That was a privilege of mine, because he was a hero of mine growing up. As I said, I just interviewed Mike Weaver, a really great guy, really nice guy, and of course I've had regulars who have been with me since the beginning, and have believed in me since the beginning, like Peter Fury, and he's a great man, and that's there are too many. Like, I never thought I'd say this in my lifetime, but there are too many. And of course, a real highlight, of course, as you know, with you being England and from England and me being Australian, you would have heard a lot of his calls in the international feeds. Colonel Bob Sheridan, that was a real big highlight. Doing that interview, great guy. He loves Australia, and that was a really just a great interview, really insightful, and I felt like a kid interviewing him. And we talked about Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson, because he did one of the greatest calls of all time doing that. No one talks about the HBO call; they talk about that call, But mostly, it's just been a big year for me, a great year for me. Personal growth, because even doing what I was doing, I carried a lot of dark demons up until this year, and this year I've finally started to believe in myself, and you've seen the results.
Absolutely. Rob, what do you think has been the key to your success?
The key to my success was, there's a couple of turning points, and I don't know how far you're going to want to dig into one, and how far you're going to want to dig into it. One, I have to say, I have to be honest, was being fired from Doghouse, because that there were circumstances which sort of led as to why that happened, and I don't want to go into a he said, she said thing, but that makes you look at yourself. And the second turning point was a Costa Zoo interview I did earlier this year, where I was so nervous because it's Costa Zoo. best fighter based in Australia that we've ever produced. He was my first Hall of Famer at the time, and I just remember being so nervous, and I did the worst thing I can ever do for someone like me, which was overanalyze the interview, did it in my head 60 times, and by the time I got to the interview / fight, because, you kind of look at them as, the same way a boxer prepares for a fight, I was burned out, and I want a chance to do that interview again, Costa, if I ever get an opportunity, because I didn't do my best interview. I didn't do it justice, and it was horrible. It was all over the place, and thankfully Jenna and everyone saved the interview for me and made it look good. But that was a big turning point too, because I looked at myself then and because the next interview was coming up, and I said to Jenna, well, do you think I should ask this question? Do you think I should ask that one? Because I was so low down on confidence. And she said the best thing, she always knew how to wind me up, Jenna, or pull strings or get the best out of me. She said the best thing she could possibly say, she said, I think we'll just let you do the next interview and let the chips fall where they may. And for me, that was, I either do a great interview the next interview, or I'm out. I'm done. I'm finished. And fortunately, I did a great interview, right? And the rest was history. But the biggest thing I learnt was I would think about an interview a couple of days before an interview. You've seen me. I talk on Facebook. I do a tears. I just about throw up. It'd be a horrible sort of feeling for me. And now I back the boxing knowledge in my head, and I pick up the phone and I do the interview just as if I'm talking to another guy in a lounge room having a beer. That's sort of something I learned from you, right? Because even though you're serious, your interviews are very relaxed and people tend to open up more. And the biggest thing I ever learned from myself, I think, was just to trust myself, trust my boxing knowledge. And of course, maybe you want to ask a different question, but there were circumstances during the last 6 months at Doghouse which shattered my confidence and didn't allow me to be the journalist that I could be. And so there was a lot of recovery missions that had to go on.
Interesting you talk about Doghouse. I'll leave it as that. In terms of... Yeah, but you know something? Sometimes you need a situation in reference to Doghouse for you to kick on to even do better. Can you imagine if you stayed with Doghouse? Would you be where you are today?
No, God, no. I'm going to tell you something. I knew that to get the best out of myself, and I would have to have someone that believed in me and believed in my journalistic integrity and my strengths, and also to have the gumption and the balls to push me and say things to me to lead me where I needed to be, to possibly find out whether I was good enough or not. And believe it or not, those people, two people that I was only willing to work with, one was you and the other one was
Jenna.
If I couldn't work with either of you two, I don't know if I'd be doing boxing anymore, because I just didn't want it to be in another clique political situation like I was sort of in before, and I just had enough. In fact, Jenna's lucky or unlucky or whatever the way you want to look at it, because you were 2 minutes away from having me, because we had a Facebook conversation and I was 2 seconds away from, this was a few months before I was 2 seconds away from leaving then and coming to work for you.
Wow.
I don't know if if you remember that or not.
So many things happen. I do know. It's kind of funny. I'll let you into a little secret while we're on this. You probably didn't know that Doghouse Boxing was doing a lot of my interviews.
Oh, I knew that, and that's why when we had a conversation, I said, and then I said, we were talking about things, and you said you could be senior boxing correspondent on my side or something like that, or
yes,
something you said to me from memory, and I said, well, I'll write Chi an email and I'll say I'm leaving, I'm coming to work for you, and you're like, no, I don't want to detriment my relationship with Doghouse, so please don't do that. But I was, as it turns out, for the best, because I'm working with Jenna, and it's been the best thing for me, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. But you were 35 seconds away from having me on staff.
Fantastic, and I guess, but it worked out for the best. You know, you went to somebody Jenna's done a lot of work, and you know what? I don't think I could have done as good a job as Jenna's done with you. So, kudos for that. In response to the whole Doghouse thing, I think something must have changed, either their leadership or because they stopped covering the interviews I was doing. They stopped retweeting the work I was doing. I don't know what happened there. And I don't know, but that, you know, stuff like that. Only there was that and a few other companies that because of them, they made me drive me to the next level. So that's why I just went into overdrive and got certain interviews and did certain things with Bayloric TV. So on the outside, it looks, oh, Ingram's done all this work, but I was driven by the disrespect at times by some people. And you know, now if you look at Bayloric TV and you look at some of the stuff that they've produced, I don't know. I'd say that we're up there with them. So I don't, and I've got the freedom to do what I want to do. I'm not having to. Go ahead.
I just want to say, something about Doghouse. I've got good relationships with writers who still work there.
Yes.
I'm not saying I'm not, as you know, I'm not one of those vindictive people. I'm not saying to people, don't go and visit the website. No. For the first 6 months at Doghouse, it was great. I had a great relationship with management. Then things just changed. John Ramp, who's a good friend, he works there. Ken Hessner, he works there.
He's a great guy. John is.
I've got some good relationships with writers who work there. They support me. It's great. So I'm happy for them. I'm not saying, I'm not asking people to hold any grudges there or anything, because it's far different between with what happened with me and with what happened with Jenna at Eastside Boxing. It's a far different circumstance.
Yeah.
So, by all means, go and visit Doghouse. The people who work there are great. Me and senior management just didn't get on, and things happen. And I would like to, and I'm not saying this begrudgingly, I would like to say this to Doghouse and Chi, thanks for your support when I did get it, and by Christ, thanks a hell of a lot for firing me, because I would no way known would I have become the journalist I've become if that hadn't happened. And so really, they did the best thing they could have ever done for me.
Yeah, they did you a favour, and it's their loss as well. Eastside Boxing's a strange one, because I was with them for a little while as well. I just found every time I was posting the video out there, it was always getting snide comments. I put a video, it would be in the top for about a minute, and it would just drop down. I thought, you know what?
Yeah.
I can't be bothered with this no more, so I just left it, and I just went on and developed with, I said with Bayloric TV, and since I don't even look back, I don't post stuff in their forums no more. I may tweet stuff out to Eastside Boxing, but the occasion they may retweet, I don't bother. I've got a small community. I send the stuff around to that community, and it seems to grow that way. Look after the people that look after you. That's what I say.
Well, that's when I really knew what sort of person Jenna was, and that I knew I could trust her. When all that stuff with Eastside Boxing went down, and they threw her out, and Jeff did his snipe backstabbing shit and the racism and shit.
Mm-hmm.
When I didn't know what was going on. way until the end, and I believe what Jenna tells me, that she didn't want to jeopardise my career. She didn't want me to get involved I knew something was going down.
Absolutely.
Because of Jeff, the later shows at Eastside Boxing, weren't of the usual quality. Jeff was saying things to me like he'd had enough and stuff. So I knew stuff was going down, right? But I didn't know enough to, stick my bib in and everything like that. But I was a newbie back then. Then I saw Jenna's first show posted on Doghouse. And then I'm like, what's going on? I want to know, right? And then she told me what was going on. And then I said, straight away, which I hope defines me as a person, and this is what people look at. She told me about what Jeff did, and and also the other stuff. And I said, that's it. I'm leaving. I said, I'm leaving right now. I said, I don't care. I'm not asking you to get me a job or anything like that. But I said, I'm leaving. I said, I cannot work at an organisation that operates like this and treats their best asset, which they've soon found out later, like that. I said, I'm leaving. So and she goes, this is where I knew what sort of person she was. She goes, don't leave. She goes, I'm not putting you in that position. You've got a good spot there and everything else. I said, Jenna, I don't care. I said, under principle and what's been done to you, I said, I'm leaving. I said, I'm not staying. And then of course I moved across with her through Doghouse, and then I think she really understood that I was the sort of person I was, and she really started to mould me into becoming a better journalist. Then not that she wasn't helping me before, but I think before she was deciding what sort of person that I was, whether I was a glad hand to just trying to hang on to get my advantage and learn some shit and then backstab, or whether I was a real genuine guy.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, your character stands out. So let's talk a little bit more. Let's talk a bit now about Rob Brown, the journalist.
Yeah, I kept talking about Jenna, don't I? Talk about me, pump myself up a bit.
Okay, let's talk about. I want to talk about Australian boxing, and as an Aussie, I'm sure you've had a few sore nights of recent times. Tommy Coyle against Michael Katsidis. Any comments about that?
My comment about that, and I'm not sure whether I spoke to you about this because you and I haven't spoken enough in recent times, and I hope that changes. But I spoke to a couple of friends of mine about Michael Katsidis, including a friend of mine that's a British journalist, Adam Forsey, who I've actually done a bit of work mentoring, actually.
Fight Guru.
Yeah, Fight Guru. Yeah, I did a bit of mentoring with him. I was the one who told him to move from blogs to interviews. And by God, hasn't he taken my advice and run with it? But to his credit, he's done most of it himself, and I'm really proud of that, because it's really great when you get a position where you can give someone advice and they take a hold of it and move forward. That's been a real great source of pride for me. But anyway, I knew Mike was shot. I knew a couple of years ago after that fight on ESPN that he was definitely shot. Really, and I've said this to a friend of mine, another great friend of mine who's been a huge support to me, great referee and great boxing person, Phil Austin. He had some concerns about Michael fighting, but I didn't really want Michael fighting because, to be honest, he's taken so many blows and so many shots that, I was worried about his brain. There's been rumours about his health going back for a while now, and I knew what was going to happen with Tommy Coyle. I knew as soon as he got hit with a good shot, he was going to go down, and that's happened. Michael's been a great warrior. He's been in some great fights. Unfortunately, some fights that have been detrimental to his health, like Monsod and everything like that, but Michael's never been one for defence, has he? But unfortunately, when you're a fighter like that, you cop a lot of blows, and when it ends. Michael's had a great career. He's been in some great fights. He's been a world title challenger a couple of times. It shouldn't have been fighting then, and unfortunately people around him who supposedly should care about him should have had the balls to tell him he shouldn't have been fighting. And what's happened, and I hope he's okay, and he realises that after that Tommy Coyle fight, that's it, and he can move on with the rest of his life.
I mean, surely he would do well as a commentator in Australia.
Well, with his reputation, him being a commentator on Fox Sports, and I'm sure he'd be great.
Yes.
Perhaps if even better if he could, because the boxing in Australia needs such a lift, and it's in so much trouble on a Main Street fan level, which is unfortunate because we've got some great depth in Australia at the moment. Even if you moved in to promoting and promoting some shows and smaller fights, and I think that'd be great for Australia. Yes, but it's time for Michael to move on, look after his health, and please don't fight again, Michael.
The way he got knocked out, I actually thought he could have done something against Quill, but that punch, oh my God, the way he got knocked out was brutal. Really brutal.
And that's the last punch that Michael Katsidis needed, isn't it? I mean, that was brutal, and I must admit, you know how you have a premonition or a feeling, or not so much. It wasn't a dream, but I knew something like that was going to happen. I knew, and I just prayed that he wasn't going to get seriously hurt. I take no pleasure in saying this, Ingram, but I knew exactly what was going to happen in the Tommy Coyle fight.
Okay,
I told people.
Let's move on to another Aussie, Anthony Mundine.
Yes.
He won. Did he? Am I right in saying that he won a world title?
He won a WBC silver belt, a world title eliminator, and he did win it because I attended the fight on the ropesboxing.com. I attended the fight, and yes, he did win it. And I interviewed him before the fight, and he was extremely confident. And I got to give credit to Anthony Mundine because he always, whether he wins, loses, or whatever, whether you like him or you don't, always turns up in tremendous shape. And he did on this occasion. And to be honest, I'm not taking anything away from Anthony Mundine, but I think Rabchenko thought too much about the Josh Clotty fight. I don't think he turned up in the best frame of mind. I think he thought it was going to be a couple of punches, it was going to be easy, and he paid the price for that.
Let's go back. I know he fought Sugar Shea Mosley, didn't he?
Sugar Shane Mosley turned up, and he was in the ring, and Mundine won, but he didn't fight
the real Sugar Shane Mosley.
No.
Yes. He didn't fight the real Well, he did fight Sugar Shane. He fought way past his Sugar Shane Mosley.
Yes.
But then I think after that, it elevated him to fight Joshua Clotty, wasn't it?
Yes, and Joshua Clotty absolutely did
a number on him.
A Bangkok dominatrix job on him there. But credit to Anthony Mundine. He come back. He's won the belt, and now I don't see it happening because I don't think we can raise that type of money. But Mick Gatto and a few of the big wigs in Australian boxing that have got the money, they seem to want to try and drag Alvarez down here. my sources tell me that they've also offered the fight to Canine Cornelius Bunbridge, and I think
that's more likely. That's more likely.
Yes, and Mundine, with his boxing skills, he can win that. He can beat Bunbridge, and I think that's the fight they should go for, because that's a belt you can take.
Answer me a question. You can be straight honest about this. Why does Mundine get so much hate?
Because it goes back to how well do you know your Australian boxing history, Ingram?
I know that he had some issues with Gill. I know that he's made some outlandish statements, but which boxer hasn't?
It goes back to 2001, though, Ingram.
Okay.
It goes back to, and he apologised for the idiotic, what he knows to be a stupid statement, but it started from 2001 when he said after September 11 that the Americans brought it on themselves, or partly brought it on themselves, and it started from there. And ever since then, he's made some comments that I'm sure he regrets about Daniel Gill's Aboriginal heritage or lack of, and the fact that he's got a white wife and everything else. He said some stupid comments. I'm sure, like from the way he interviewed me, he was very nice. He was very calm, very considerate. I'm sure that down to earth, outside of the public persona, he can be a nice guy. He said some stupid things. You can't put across that he said some stupid things and just forget about it and let it all slide, because what you say out there in the public is what you say. But as far as the hate goes, it goes back to 2001 with the anti-American statement.
Okay, well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to say some things here that might come out as controversial, but things that I experienced when I was in Australia. And my experience of Australia was I saw how a lot of the Australians treated the Aborigines. I saw them spit on Aborigines when I was on buses. I saw them kick Aborigines. I saw them be very disrespectful and treat them as if they were animals rather than people. And that will always stick in my mind, despite being in Australia for almost a year. It was a great experience and did a lot of coaching. I was in Melbourne, and there were some great people I met in Australia. But those images still stick in my mind, and I can't help but think that there's still a connection between that which I saw then and Anthony Mundine.
And also the fact that I despise racism, and I'm not a part of any of this. But
right.
Also the fact that he is also a part of another minority group, which and I know too. I've friends with two Muslims, and they're great people.
Yep. But
unfortunately, he's a Muslim as well, and there's a lot of Australian rednecks that don't have the right idea about the real Australian Muslims, and he cops it on that too. So he cops it on both sides. So he's got the problem of being a member of two minority groups, which a lot of the white Australian yobbos, and I have to call them that, don't agree with. And he's got also on top of that some of the statements that he's made. So that's basically the crux of it. That's basically why he gets so much hate.
I remember being approached while I was coaching in Australia and being called water boy. I also remember being in while I was coaching one of the young Aborigine batsmen, very good player. He was being abused every day. Water boy, darky, all sorts of derogatory names. And one guy asked me, "Are you English? So do you speak a different language because you're black in England?"
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And it was almost I wasn't stunned. I wasn't surprised. And then I've watched stuff on Home and Away and Neighbours where if you've got somebody who's Aborigine moves into the community, they're automatically a criminal or a this or that. So you've got even the stereotypes within the soap operas, which I've watched a lot in Australia. So then you think to yourself, the whole integration system there, almost some cultures have been forced onto other people not liking it. I don't know. Has that got anything to do with it as well?
Well, Mundine wants to hate too because he's made a decision. Well, people are going to hate me anyway, so I may as well create more of it. So it drives me. So he kind of creates some of it himself too. It's not all us as an Australian society. He creates some of it by saying
absolutely.
These are my people, and and the rest of yous are the rest of yous. And if that helps him, good luck to him because I've met him. He's a person. I've dealt with him and his manager, his agent. When I went to get Mundine, and they were first class from the beginning. In fact, getting this interview, I complimented them on their professionalism and the way they treated me because they were just. I got to say it. They were first class. But he creates some of it as well. But unfortunately, we've got a problem in Australia with racism, and I'm not just saying it's Australian; it's a problem in a lot of countries.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's always going to cop it. But hopefully, the performance against Rybchenko on the way he fought a dangerous guy, and he's been criticised for ducking and dodging and everything else, but who hasn't over the years? Hopefully that'll earn him some respect, a bit more respect, and a few more fans for because I'm not going to hide from it. As you know, I've been critical myself of Anthony Mundine in the past and the way the first Mosley fight was handled and everything. I'm not going to hide away from that. But Mundine was very pleasant to me. It was a great interview. He went in, he came in shape, he fought well, he won, and you can't take it away from him, and I'll be happy to interview him again. And maybe in some of the things I may have said and done in the past, I may say that I made some misjudgments myself, possibly. So, when you're in our line of work and you have to say things that, you're going to do that on occasion. But I will say that I'm not going to back away from the fact that I don't like the comments he said to Daniel Geale about his American heritage and about his wife and children and everything. I'm not going to back away from that. That was appalling, and he knows that, and he apologised for that. And I'm not going to back away from, as you know, I've got a lot of American friends, and I'm not going to back away from those anti-American statements that he made. And, I'm not going to defend him for that either. But, in terms of what he's done and the way he's conducted himself and the way he fought, I'm going to congratulate him on that. Because despite what you think of a person and certain things they've done, we're not fans. We're journalists, and we have to give credit where credit needs to be given.
You see, one of the problems is, Rob, that for the casual fans, they don't understand the difference between the boxer and the promoter.
And the public persona.
Yes, the promoter.
Yeah.
So that's why, from day one, since I've known Tyson Fury, I knew that there was a public persona that he was putting on because I took the time to look beyond that to see the person. That's why I was able to make a judgment call right at the start when I did my first interview. I called him on it. I said to him, look, this is all tongue-in-cheek, isn't it? I said, this is all tongue-in-cheek, Tyson, but at the end of the day, people need to understand this because people will misread who you are. Now he's come out and said, you know what? I don't need to have this public persona and I'm a bad man and all this stuff. I'm just going to be who I am. And if you don't like it, that's it. So you're seeing a sort of different Tyson Fury now. So, I think that fans need to understand that people are trying to sell tickets. When you understand people are trying to sell tickets, take half they say is a load of rubbish and hype, and then when they don't have to sell tickets, listen to them and see what they have to say. Some people are complete idiots, and that's just it, regardless whether they're selling tickets or not.
Can I give you an Australian example for that?
Yep.
And you know we're struggling, right? Mundine Gill, all that controversial, all that hype, all those comments, people who, turn their nose up and say, oh, we don't like this and everything like that, and they either buy a ticket and turn up, or they pay the pay-per-view, or they spend the $50 on the pay-per-view, don't they?
Yep.
They're hypocrites, right? Because, Mundine Gill was a sellout. And how many sellouts have we had in Australia? The Mundine Mosley fight, the one that did happen, it was, we had the failed promotion before that, which, didn't make us look good, right? But the Mundine Mosley fight, there was respect. There was Mundine saying he loves Mosley and he thinks he's a champion. There was respect on the other side. How many people turned up, Ingram? 300 people. How many people turned up?
Yeah, but let me drop it this way to you. Black v white sells better than black v black. Am I being wrong there?
Correct.
That's just and Gill versus Mundine, the Aborigine versus the white guy. I mean, that I'm just dropping it out there. I mean, who wants to see an Aborigine get beat up? Hey, let's go pay our $50, or let's go watch this fight and let's bring some beers. Let's bring some blondes with us to drink and go ahead and watch a fight. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. Obviously, that's going to be a sellout fight.
Gill's a Aboriginal mate, but I know what you're saying. It was the real Mundine was turning it into the real Aboriginal guy versus the. This is not what Daniel Gill is. I'm just giving you the premise of.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mundine was turning it into the real Aboriginal guy versus the white patsy, sort of Aboriginal guy, which sold the fight. And it sort of reminded me, believe it or not, I hate drawing this parallel, but in the way it was marketed, it sort of reminded me of Ali versus Joe Frazier, where, Ali was the real black guy and
Joe Frazier was the...
Yeah, Joe Frazier was the white patsy guy promoted by a bunch of white guys.
Well, you can even turn it even further into Tyson Holyfield, where you have the Christian versus the Muslim, which is what the fight was really about.
Yep. Correct.
So, we can't run away from these issues in boxing. If we do, we're hypocrites. Because that's what it is. That's really what it is.
What really annoys me is they want fights sold, and then when a fighter tries to put on a persona and sell a fight, they criticise him for it. Like people who are against Tyson Fury, and I'm going to cop it from mates of mine who don't like Tyson Fury, but I don't care. People who, because I know from one interview that I know Tyson Fury. You might think that's silly, but I feel like I know him. But nevertheless, people were criticising Tyson Fury for, being a dickhead, or what people in England might call a twat.
Yeah.
Or, hope you don't mind me using the English slang. But, things like Tyson Fury's a twat and everything like that, right? Then, because of ridiculous British border control fights, because they were telling him to promote the fights, and then when he does it, he gets punished for it.
Yep.
But having said that, right, he turns into the Tyson Fury that I've interviewed, and then people complain on the other end and say, "Where's Tyson Fury? What the hell do you want?"
Well, you know that a lot of these people, they're not boxing fans at all. They are they're not boxing fans. They are kind of hypocrites. They say one thing or contradict. 1 minute they say one thing, and then when you go that way, you can't please these people. So you know what? As Tyson Fury says, just do what you want to do. So I don't pay attention to people like that. Ask those people to talk to you about the history of boxing. And they won't tell you about the history of boxing. They'll tell you about Manny Pacquiao and why Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather haven't fought. But they won't tell you about the history of boxing.
Yeah, I know you're going to ask more questions, but I just want to elaborate. I think we've got a group of underclass in boxing, unfortunately, that are boxing. How do I explain this? I'll give you a name for them. They're boxing fans, but they're anti-boxing fans. And what I mean by that is they join the groups, they get on the forums, they make comments, they don't even read the articles, and they just get on basically just a bag boxing. They call themselves boxing fans. You know, it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there are any of those groups in other sports, but certainly they haven't got as many as we've got. Anyway, they're not even boxing fans. They're fans of bagging boxing. That's what
there are fans that have racist agendas, and that's what some of them are. And there are some in cricket as well. So it could be between Pakistan and India, or India and Bangladesh, or England versus West Indies. You get it. It's there. It's evening cricket. So yeah, their forums are like that as well. But you know.
Oh, Mayweather Pacquiao, you want to talk about racism? You read some of the disgusting comments I get underneath some of my article, and it's not my place to say because I'm a journalist. I've done the article, and it's not my role. It's not my role to pick fights and comment about people underneath. If you're going to criticise my article, criticise my article with a something meaningful to say. I don't mind that, rather than just saying, gay weather or monkey and you haven't even read the article.
Well, people like that I wouldn't pay any attention to. I really wouldn't pay them any mind. They express, some of them can't even put two words together, so we'll worry about them. Worry about the people who really are students of the game and give you reasons.
It's just so annoying.
Yeah, it's annoying, but you know what? If you give them any attention, like I used to give them attention on my YouTube channel, now I just remove them, I just block them. And I don't talk about Mayweather Pacquiao every week because that's not boxing, but it's one fight. It's not boxing. Some people think boxing is Mayweather. Boxing is not Mayweather. Mayweather's a fighter.
Yeah, it annoys me too because we've had some great fights this year, and particularly in the British scene, you've just exploded. I mean, you got Fury, you had Chisora up there until and you had fighters that people haven't even heard of yet, like Barry Galahad. Yeah,
yes.
Hasn't fought great fighters yet, but he's got tremendous talent, and people will be talking about him in a year. It's and Scott Quigg and Frampton and Crawler. Jesus, it must be unbelievably over in the UK at the moment, Ingram. I'm jealous. I've got to be honest with you.
Well, let's see. A year from now when these guys are
Joshua.
Well, let's see. Let's give it a year from now. Let's see these guys step up and fight some real quality opponents, and let's see what happens. We know Frampton's fought, and he fought well against Martinez. Let's see Quigg step up and fight Leo Santa Cruz, or even fight the guy. I'd like to see Quigg versus Martinez. Now, that's a fight I'd like to see.
Yep. Okay.
So, yeah, let's continue about Australian boxing. Daniel Gill unfortunately decided, I don't know what was in his brain, but he decided to take on a challenge. Well, you can take on a challenge, but he went in to have a challenge and fight GGT. He went in fighting GGT with a slingshot and against a guy with 2 atomic bombs. There was no way Gill was going to win that fight. There was no way Gill was going to be able to stick around for 12 rounds. So he was getting in the ring to get knocked out.
All right, you can say that, and you're correct. And if I'm any credible journalist, I can't argue with it. You're right. But he decided, well, I want to take on the best out there. And a lot of people say they want to take on the best out there, and they don't. And they, either their promoters do it, or they themselves duck, dodge, and dive and everything, and then they get criticised for that. Gill gets criticised for going and fighting the best out. Yeah, yes, he got knocked out, but he fought the best out there. And you forget at that time, he could have done a number of things to get himself a belt. He could have fought another belt. He could have fought Solomon again. Yeah, it wouldn't have sold, but he could have fought Solomon there. No disrespect to Sam, but Gill would have won that. He would have got himself a belt. There are a number of other middleweights that he could have fought.
He could fight Cotto instead.
Yeah. But,
because Cotto wouldn't have done as much damage as GGG's done, and the sort of you got to remember when you fight GGG, the sort of damage GGG leaves you in your career, you don't know if you're going to have a career after you fight GGG.
Yeah, well, I will say I don't know whether it's the effects of the GGG fight. I don't know if you saw the fight because it's not that big in other parts of the world, but the Jared Fletcher versus Gill fight, yes, Gill won, but a prime Gill, in my opinion, should knock Jared Fletcher out in 6 or 7 rounds, but his timing was off, his work rate was down, he doesn't have great punch power anyway, but his punching power, even for him, seemed to be down. To be honest, I don't think Jared Fletcher should be fighting at middleweight anyway. He's too small. He should be fighting at 154. But anyway, that's beside the point. He should have, someone like Gill, for where he wants to be, should have disposed of Jared Fletcher handily, and he didn't. So you wonder where he goes from here.
Yeah, Gill versus Billy Joe Saunders, maybe?
Yeah, that would be a fight that I would love to see.
Chris Eubank Jr., Daniel Gill?
No. I want to Chris Eubank. Yes. Daniel Gill's got a lot more experience, and he's a better fighter and boxer at the moment. I do believe. Oh well, he is at the moment. But I don't believe Chris Eubank is the right fight, particularly after the knockout with JGG, because Chris Eubank can hit him, can hurt him, and could knock him out, and could finish off the damage, could finish off the wrist of Daniel Gill, whereas Billy Joe Saunders isn't a huge puncher. He's still a good fight. He's a credible win if he beats Billy Joe Saunders, and that would be a difficult fight for Daniel Gill, and if he won that, he could say he's back, but no Chris Eubank, no.
What about Daniel Gill versus Andy Lee?
Again, that would be an interesting fight too, but Andy Lee has got the
left hand.
Yeah, the left hand, and I just look the Jared Fletcher fight. I don't like bagging things or setting up or saying it. The Jared Fletcher fight was set up for a reason. It's two Australians, it's semi-biggish down here. Jared Fletcher was coming off a world title loss against Jacobs, so you could argue it was a credible win, and there I go. Jared Fletcher didn't have any punching power, so it was the perfect
comeback
fight to sort of gauge where Daniel Gill's at, and
right.
after what I saw, I got to tell you, I'm a bit worried.
I'm not sure. I don't know if it's my place to judge Daniel Gill now, but I certainly, I don't know. Let's go back to the Barker fight. Forget the GGG fight. The Barker fight. I mean, he dropped Barker. Barker got up, and Barker still went on to win the fight. He had the opportunity there to finish Barker off. And if you bear in mind what happened to Barker after that, how he got stopped quite quickly by Felix Sturm.
Who doesn't stop really anybody any good.
There you go.
So, yeah. And, you can argue about the first fight, but as Sam Solomon, way past his prime handily beat Felix Stern in the second fight. So you got some questions there. You're right, but look, I don't know where Daniel Gill goes, but not for another couple of fights. I wouldn't put him. And I doubt you would if you're his manager either.
Well, I want to see if I would never put him with GGG now anyway. I would have avoided a GG fight and said, you know what?
I wouldn't put him in with Andy Lee either. Not at the moment.
I would have put him with GGG. I would have told him to fight someone else, build your record up. Don't fight GGG. And when you want to finish your career off, go fight GGG. That's suicide kind of fight. Whoever advised him to fight GGG, I don't know who it was because it was not a good move for his career.
Well, I tell you what, I did mention this before, but I'll tell you what I reckon's going to happen. Correct me if I'm wrong. Peter Quillen is one of he's an Al Heyman guy, right?
Yeah.
Peter Quillen, right? Who has depends whether he gets incarcerated for 35 years or not, but who has a middleweight belt at the moment that's extremely weak, that Peter... I see... we talked about Peter Quillen before in our previous conversation. It's possible that Peter Quillen could be matched up against Jermaine Taylor and take that belt. What are your thoughts on that? Because you see that happening.
Yeah, you can see that happening.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm going back to my interview again. But yeah. Anyway,
that'd be good. Let's go back to Australian boxing a bit more. So we've talked about Gill. We've had Gill that got flattened by GGG. You've had this isn't looking good. What's his name? The guy that got knocked out by Tommy Coyle. Katsidas got knocked out by Tommy Coyle. Joel Bunker.
Well, Joel Bunker, I mean...
he got knocked out by... was it Crawler? Was it Crawler that knocked him out? Selby, yes, Selby, that's the one.
He got humiliated by Selby. The golfing class was just... well, I'm sure you watched the whole fight. Joel Bunker's a good kid. He's a good... I said before the fight that what is Joe Bunker doing a week before the fight in England? He should have been here a month before preparing to acclimatise himself. And I said that he will feel it late on in the fight, and boy, did he feel it. Yes, but also, and I don't know if you're just trying to rip my get an Ashes one on me, trying to rip my insides out, talking about Australian boxing and us getting our ass whipped, Ingram, but anyway, the golfing class was just there to be seen. Selby, unfortunately, I have to talk honestly about the fight. He looked like he could have had a cup of tea, talked to his trainer, and fought Joel Bunker in there with one hand. But Joel Bunker's a good kid. He's a high-level Australian domestic fighter, but as we've seen, he can't go any further than that. But there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with being at that level. I just think that it's good for him to. But now Joel Bunker has seen which level that he's at, and he has to move on. He's nothing but. It sounds awful, but he's nothing but a come forward pressure fighter with limited skills. And
mate, just make sure now you've put your cards on the table. He doesn't turn around and win a world title now. Then
you'll dig that back out. It'll be on the front page of
Is it the Tribune? I'm in one of your national newspapers in Australia, actually.
Sorry?
I'm in one of your national newspapers in Australia. I'll send you the article later, yeah.
Cool.
But I'd say that in respect to, I'll get the Joe Bunker interview that we did here and send it to them. I'm sure that the Australian media would have a field day with it.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Look, when when you're a journalist, when you're conducting interviews, and you know what you're saying, you're putting yourself on the line. Now I'm putting myself on. You're asking me questions. I'm putting myself on the line, and I'm not being terribly guarded here, am I? I might have to move countries after this, but Ingram, I might have to start your place, mate, because I might be done after this interview.
We haven't finished yet. We still haven't finished yet with Australian boxing. Let's continue. Alex Leopai.
Oh, what are you doing? Oh, can I take a breath? Alex Leopai.
The Lion. Get it right. Alex the Lion Leopai.
Yeah, well, he's turned out to be more like a cub in recent times, hasn't he? But look, Alex Leopai's a nice guy, a good guy. He went in there and fought Klitschko. We all knew that he was. I hate saying this. We all knew he was going to get
manhandled.
Knocked out in 5-6 rounds and played with and stuff like that. We all knew it. Shannon Briggs knew it.
Let's go, champ! Let's go, champ!
Let's go, champ! He did a Christmas chicken post on his Instagram a couple of days ago before Christmas, and I wrote underneath, "Let's eat, champ." He's like, it's unfortunate because Alex Leopai fought his heart out to get to that position. I'm not into. It's just facts of fact that people aren't bad. He just wasn't in Klitschko's class. He went over to Germany. He fought in a world title, and he can say that to his kids and his grandkids. And we haven't had a legitimate heavyweight in Australia for years. We got Lucas Brown.
Hold on. Jimmy Thunder?
Shut up. Please.
Wait, wasn't he WBF world champion?
Oh, Ingram, you're really trying to wind. You're really trying to wind me up. The only legitimate heavyweight we had wasn't a real, and I'm sorry, that wasn't a real Aussie. He was an expat in Joe Bugner, and that's all we could basically claim in about 100 years. So the fact that Alex Leopai has achieved something in history that hasn't been achieved in a long time, he can hold his head up high with that, and I'm still very proud of him.
That Malik Scott fight, which I still haven't seen. I didn't know the fight happened.
A lot of people didn't know. A lot of people in Australia didn't care. But it was just, and I've only seen, but it was just, he didn't have the boxing skills to compete with Malik Scott. He didn't have the speed. He was too slow, and it was just in Australia with the home crowd behind him, and people talk about home judges and everything. He didn't win a round, right?
Okay.
That shows you what an absolute massacre it was, and I knew it was going to be, and I told people to put their money on it and everything else. And as I said to you previously, I didn't do it, so I was spewing. So, but yeah, I knew exactly. The thing about Alex Leopai is he's just going to be, a good domestic level Australian heavyweight. Someone like Bob Merovic who was a great domestic level Australian heavyweight, or a Colin Wilson, and that's all he's going to be, and that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but he's levels that, and that's it.
Okay, let's move on. Another Australian and a heavyweight as well.
You better cut some of this out, or I'm going to get sued.
Next heavyweight, Mark Damori.
Now, I don't know a lot about him.
No?
No.
Okay. He actually fought Alex Leopi. He had a bit of a mullet hairstyle.
Oh, okay.
No, you don't know him?
Yeah, can you save me and we move on from that? I've interviewed, do you want to talk about Brown or not?
No, we'll go to Brown afterwards. Another fighter, female fighter who's also not done very well recently, Diane Prazak, who was the number 1 in the world. Female fighter.
She's great. We got her, we got Diana. We're doing well in female fighting. It's unfortunate that people don't hear about it. We got her, and we've got Suzy Q Ramanan, and you can say this, and you don't have to cut it out, and you can put it in the transcript. She got robbed to buggery recently. To buggery, that's Australian, isn't it? There you go. Recently in a title fight over in Mexico, and we got a real problem with women's boxing in general. And I heard your interview with Ava Knight, who unfortunately I haven't met, and who I'd like to interview at some stage because I haven't done enough for women's boxing. I've only interviewed one woman in my time, and Suzy Q a couple of years back, and so I'd like to do some more. And I was genuine when I said that underneath your, it's time for me to get a few more women next year, and we'll see how that goes. But problem with women's boxing in general is it's in Mexico. Only the Mexicans put it on. Only the Mexicans put money into it, and people talk about robberies in men's boxing. Well, I know you know, Ingram, because you know a lot more about women's boxing than most people, and you've interviewed women promoters and fighters. The robberies in women's boxing are a hell of a lot worse. Hell of a lot worse.
Absolutely. De La Hoya's talked about last year. He talked about doing more for women's boxing. When I talked to Diana Prazak and her trainer, Lucia Riker, they were both stunned. That, in a nutshell, tells me that it's a lot of PR talk and spin.
Yeah. I to be honest, I believe it when I say it. And I don't believe it either. But it's unfortunate because when people who don't know anything about women's boxing and unfortunately have a disrespect for it because they don't have, and I don't blame them for it because they haven't seen it. They think it's jolly wrestling or foxy boxing or whatever. When they actually see two women fight and go at it, they think to themselves, well, this is great boxing. In fact, I've seen some fight cards in Australia where the best fight on the card has been
two women.
Two women. And I'm not just saying that to get plaudits or anything from women or, thanks, Robbie, or anything. I'm saying that because I mean it. I just think instead of putting and this leads me into what we were talking about earlier, but instead of putting, some of these bricklayers and rugby players on these pay-per-view cards in Australia, get some, world title fights with women or good fights involving people like Diana and Suzy and other great women, even bring them in from other countries, because if Australia has an opportunity to be an epicenter for women's boxing, because no one else does it. Why can't we do it? We've already got 2 world champions here, and I'm sure that if these fights were put on cards at 7:30 at night on a Sunday, and people started watching it and seeing it for what it is, I'm sure they'd keep watching it. I'm not saying that.
Absolutely.
I'm not just saying that, Ingram, and it's a passion of mine, and the reason I'm being so passionate about it is because I know it's a passion of yours.
Absolutely.
It's women can fight. They're great fighters. They're good athletes.
I'll put it out there. I'll put it out for 2015. I would be more than happy to show more women's boxing on Bayloric Worldwide TV if that meant me doing less men's interviews and doing less men interviews to do women's boxing and to show women's boxing on Bayloric TV. Then you can quote me on it. I will do it.
And I will make a pledge right here and right now to get off my backside and start interviewing more women into 2015. And if I don't do it, I aim to do it. But if I don't do it, I know you'll call me out on it. So I'm stamping in here right now that 2015, that Robert Brown and his interviews, it's going to be, much less of a sausage fest, and we're going to get some women on there.
We need to, absolutely. There's some great fighters out there. Of course, now we can have a bit of fun. We can enjoy, because it's been a bit of a downer for Aussie boxing. Let's talk about Lucas Brown.
Oh, thanks, mate. So you've done with...
Well, I had a good fight against Rudenko.
You've done with desecrating Australian boxing, and now we'll move on to the positive stuff. Well, Lucas Brown was an interesting night for me, because on the Mundine card, he fought Chauncey Williver, who is a friend of mine, and so that was an interesting thing for me, because Chauncey's been a friend of mine for years, and it's the first time that I've interviewed. It was an interesting parallel, because I didn't interview with Lucas Brown, and it's the first time I've interviewed someone about beating up a person I consider a friend of mine. But I did it, and I did it well. I got to tell you, it was an interesting experience of mine being at that fight too. I was perhaps more even interested in the outcome of that fight because of my relationships than the Mundine fight. So it was interesting. But yeah. Lucas Brown, and I'll have to be honest, and I'll put it on the record here, he's gone a lot further, and he's been dedicated to the craft since he moved on from MMA. He's been dedicated to the craft, and he's gone a lot further than I thought he would. He's become Commonwealth champion. Yeah, perhaps me being the grizzled boxing guy, I thought, he's another guy that will come over from MMA. He'll knock over a few bums, he'll get knocked out, and then that'll be the end of it. That's what I originally thought. But he's come over, he's done well. He's the first guy to win, Australian guy to win the Commonwealth title in about since you were a young lad, Ingram. So, bit of tongue-in-cheek there. It's been 102 years. But yeah, so it's a big thing for Australia. He's done well, and now in my interview, he's targeting Ruslan Chagayev, I believe, next. So we'll see what happens there. But he's done well. He's gone up in the ranks. He's doing very well. He's got himself a good ranking, and he's breathed a bit of life. Well, as I said, Australia basically had no heavyweight history at all. So whatever Lucas Brown does, he's pretty much created it, really, him and Alex Leopold. So it's a good time for Australia at the moment with the heavyweights, because, Lucas Brown is a real Australian. He's not, no disrespect to Joe, I love Joe, but Lucas Brown's not an expat. He's a real Australian. He's done himself proud by winning a Commonwealth title. Unfortunately, and this is the reason I wanted to get Lucas Brown, and I interviewed Lucas Brown. Unfortunately, he seems to have more fans in the UK at the moment. He's got sort of a real cult following in the UK, hasn't he? At the moment, more fans in the UK than he has in Australia, but hopefully with a few more good wins, that changes.
Yeah, Lucas Brown does carry power. He was a big puncher. My concern about him is when he starts moving up a gear into the bigger fights, that will he be able to land that big punch? Because he's got slow feet, he's very ponderous, but he's a big puncher, very big puncher. And once you can punch in the heavyweight division, you stand a chance against anybody.
Yeah, well, I'm reserving my judgment as to how far Lucas Brown can go, because if we were honest with ourselves, he's gone a lot further than just about any of us thought he would. He's dedicated to the craft, he's in shape, and he's really, what I really appreciate about Lucas Brown is he's so dedicated, like whether you like him or you don't, because he's had some dysfunctional relationships with top fighters before. He's gone and got Jeff Fennick on board. He's lighter, he's lost some kilos, and the one thing about Lucas Brown is how far he's going to get is how good he is. There's no cutting corners with that guy, and he's going to take it as far as he can take it, and that's all you can ask. And he's already got a Commonwealth title, so for Australian heavyweight history, that's not bad.
Absolutely. He one of his former opponents, I think it's Rudenko.
Yeah.
Is who Hughie Fury's going to be fighting next. Any thoughts on that fight?
Hughie Fury, I haven't seen a lot of Hughie because there's not much out there with Hughie. But having said that, Hughie, he's Rudenko's no bum, and so Peter doesn't put his fighters in with anybody unless he believes they're ready. And Peter must be thinking that Hughie must be getting back to 100% health with his liver and everything else. So we'll see what happens. The truth is, I don't really know, but one thing I know about Peter is he wouldn't be putting Hughie in with someone like Rudenko unless he thought he was ready. But more, I think the plaudits has to go with Peter as a trainer. And I'm not even talking about Tyson. I know he hasn't fought high-level guys, but the way Eddie Chambers has been turned around in his body shape and the way he's fighting, and he's getting KOs, and he's more attacking now instead of having that sparring partner mentality that he had for a couple of years there, and with his wrong diet and bloody injuries and everything.
Yep.
Peter Fury has done an unbelievable transformation with Eddie Chambers, to which I don't think he's been given enough credit for. And you make sure that Peter knows that I've said this. I think Peter's done a magnificent job with Eddie Chambers, not only in his body and in his mind, but more importantly with his mind. And I think it's just an unbelievable job. But having said that, he wouldn't be putting Hughie in unless he thought he was ready, and I'm sure Peter's very confident, so we'll see what happens. But, geez, the amount of luck the Fury family have had over the last couple of years that, and I've said this personally to Peter Fury, just privately on his Facebook page, on his message, because I don't need likes or anything. I just like to talk to people man to man. I've said, look, because I've had problems in my life being in a wheelchair and health problems and everything like that. And I said to Peter Fury in the last interview that we did, in the uncut interview, that Peter Fury, the way he's dealt with things and the way his family have dealt with things, has actually helped me, because the things that have happened to Peter Fury and his family, I thought, well, if Peter Fury's not whinging about it, well then, then I can't whinge about much, can I? So, and he's got a small clan, which I think he likes. He's got, Eddie, which Eddie went to Peter Fury and said, I need help. And if you go honestly to Peter Fury and say you need help, he's going to help you. But with Peter Fury, you either give 130% or you're out, which Eddie Chambers has done, and that's been clear. And, and he's got Tyson and Hughie and everything like that. But that's the thing I most like about Peter Fury, is it's not about some of these bigger trainers that almost make themselves bigger than the fighters they're training. Peter Fury's got his small clan of fighters and his family, and he's out to making history with them. And I'm happy me about that. Peter Fury hasn't got a massive ego. He's a world-class trainer, but he doesn't turn around and tell you, like some of the others, that I'm a world-class trainer. You just know it, and he just goes about his business. And I've got massive respect for that man, despite what people say about, the Furies and Travellers and everything else. I don't care. I know Peter Fury as Peter Fury, and, I'm happy to be associated with that man any day of the week.
Rob Brown, thank you so much for talking to Bayloric TV. It's been a great interview and great talking with you.
All right, sorry, I've probably gone on way too much again, and you're going to have a big of a job cutting this, but I hope this was a much better interview than
Fantastic interview, Rob, as always.
The one I did previously, and have a great Christmas, and hopefully there's better things for you on Bayloric TV in the future, and I look forward to following your progress, and I'm sure you look forward to following mine. So thank you very much.
I will say one thing in closing, that the thing that I was looking forward to seeing happen has happened, which is you becoming a better journalist and realising that not to give up and that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, before we end the interview, if I'd just like to go back and, as I said, the turning point was the Costa Do interview, and realising that, I have got the talent. I've just got to believe in myself and do it and stop working myself up. But also, another point of view was I had an asset in Jenna, and I didn't realise what an asset I had. I think it was partly because of the last 6 months of my previous employ, which you know what sort of a headspace
Yep.
I was in, and that doesn't help anyone. But instead of seeing Jenna as an asset and thinking, well, I've got this unbelievable asset in Jenna and Ingram and other people that I can bounce off and work off, I was thinking, well, the negativity, it's amazing what negativity, I'm never going to be as good as Jenna. Look, Jenna's got this person again, got that person again, look at who I've got, and focusing on being in Jenna's shadow all the time. I haven't talked to her about it, and I'm glad I did. I haven't said to her twice that I was thinking about leaving because I was sick of being in her shadow. Instead of seeing her as an unbelievable asset that she is, and thinking, well, why and you would have said this to me too, is why the fuck sorry about the language.
This is not Sky Sports, keep going.
Why are you sitting around fucking worrying about the legacy of somebody else spending months doing that and not doing anything yourself? And look at what I've done once I've decided to put my foot forward and realise how good I am. I didn't mean that in an arrogant sense.
No.
But what I can do, and now I'm forming a legacy on my own. I've done Al Bernstein 5 times, hopefully seeing I've done someone like Al Bernstein 5 times or 4 times, hopefully the 5th coming up next year. Some guy who was a guy I idolised because he's one of the few real journalists left who tries to be unopinionated, set the table for the viewer and let them make up their own minds, not shove it down people's throats.
Yep.
I've done Al Bernstein, I've done Colonel Bob Sheraton, I've done Larry Holmes, I've done Mike Weaver, I've done all these, Antonio Tara, I've done recently. Great Costa Zoo, a guy I grew up idolising. I can turn around and say I've interviewed Costa. I can turn around and say I've interviewed some of these amazing people, and Chris Bird, another great guy, former world champ. Some of these amazing people. Joe Cortez, Hall of Fame referee, great guy. I know I can pick it. These are people, and I'm sure you've got them too, that I know that I can pick up the phone and actually talk to an interview any time that they want. And I can say, you're Robert Brown from Australia. You want to speak? You're a great guy. And they actually respect me, and they speak, and you speak to them. It's not about the lists of interviews that you've got and who you've named and how many Hall of Fame world champions. It's the fact that these people in the boxing community respect you, and in the boxing community, I'm not Robert Brown, the guy in the wheelchair who lives over the road. I'm now being known as Robert Brown, the boxing journalist, and that's a great thing. And people have contacted me and say how much they respect mine. Bobby Chaz, brilliant guy, brilliant analyst. I've interviewed him. It's just amazing what I've done in 1 year. But of course, the frustrating thing about that is it took me 3 years to realise that, to get the confidence and realise that I could do, and I can go on from that now. But some of these amazing things that I've done, if you look back and if I looked back and thought about what I'd done, you think, geez, but you don't do that. You never get a big head. You go on and you move forward and you do your job. But it's Deontay Wilder. I'm starting to remember all these people that I've interviewed. It's amazing because you forget. When you're going from. But one thing I will give you the interview, and a guy that I've been chasing for 3.5 years, my hero. I haven't had a chance to interview him yet, and hopefully that happens in 2015.
Wow.
Because I've tried and it hasn't happened. Hopefully, in 2015, I have an opportunity to interview Marvellous Marvin Hagler, because if I interview Marvin Hagler, don't worry, I don't have any plans to, but if I could interview Marvin Hagler and I died the next day, I'd die a happy man then, because he's my hero. He's the reason I got involved. He's the reason I fell in love with boxing, just the way he fought and his work ethic, and the fact that he wasn't one of those guys that would chirp a whole lot. He would just do his training, train like an animal, get in there, knock him out, and go home. And he'd wear that war cap with war on his mind, and he was just a great guy. And he wanted to, Marvin Hagler, he wanted to fight everybody who came along, and there are very few fighters out there, and it would be an absolute honour to interview him, because there would be no one that knows more about Marvin Hagler's career than me, and I want to tick that off my box in 2015. I'm hoping it happens. So if Marvin Hagler's people are out there and are listening, give me that interview, because you're not going to regret it.
Well, we look forward to listening to your interview with Marvin Hagler in 2015. I think if you put it out there, these things can happen in the universe. Just be ready for it.
Is there anyone that you've interviewed a lot of people, including the President of the United States, but is there anyone that you haven't interviewed yet that you would like to tick off?
I've got a list. Cecilia Breakers, I've come very close to interviewing. I want to interview her. I want to interview Marion Jones. Yeah. That's two. Let me think. Interviews I'd really like to do. I want to interview a couple of comedians this next year, and then I'm going to interview a few political figures in 2015.
I want to interview. There's a guy that I want to interview, Victor Conti, man, because I'm not afraid to ask the questions that need to be asked, both in how widespread is the doping problems that we have in boxing, plus with his image, with Victor Conti's image, is he turned into now this saviour, this Mr. Clean guy, because he's trying to turn his reputation and around and get a few brownie points before he goes to the man upstairs, or is he trying to uncover these guys just because he got found out? I'd love to ask a few of those questions.
Well, the best way to find out is to get the interview with him. He's on Twitter, so you can get hold of him and talk to him.
Yeah, because Victor Connie, I know he's done interviews on 2020 and stuff like that, but he's escaped a few of the questions that I think really need to be asked. Plus, I want to find out from him how far. I mean, we know it's always ahead, but how far is some of the drugs that are being developed ahead of the testing? And can we really get it? Is it just a pipe dream? Can we really get ahead of the drug problem in sport, or are we just a little boy putting our thumb in the dike? And is this just really a fruitless effort? Well, actually, can I get your thoughts on that? What do you reckon?
I think there's more drug use than people want to give credit for. I think that's just the way it is. I don't think that's just in boxing. I think that's in a lot of sports.
Well, in sports like cycling, I'm gonna tell you what goes through my head straight away, and I don't mean for it to occur. It just happens. In sports like track and field and cycling, someone wins a great race by a great length, and they put a great performance in. I'm not thinking what a great performance that is. I'm thinking straight away in my head, I wonder what shit they're on. And I've got to be honest, I'm thinking that straight away. I'm not even, particularly in sports like track and field and cycling, I'm not even thinking, geez, like when you say, and I'm Usain Bolt, I'm not saying you're on anything or anything like that. We'll just preface that, right? I'm just saying when someone like that wins a performance by 2.5 lengths and they're hardly jogging and they're not even looks like they're running hard, I'm not thinking, geez, that's a class performance. Unfortunately, I think straight away in my head, because of the damage that has been done to those sports, I'm thinking, I wonder what. Is it just me, or do you think that too?
Yeah, you do think it, but then how much of that can you then watch a fight objectively, and then you're thinking, well, is this one on PEDs or that person on PEDs, and maybe I've missed this person out. It gets to the point. You remember the point where we were talking about Pacquiao, and Pacquiao was knocking everybody out, and then the people started, how come Pacquiao's knocking people out? He's such a small guy, knocking all these big guys out, and then when more pressure was put on Pacquiao to find out whether he was doing the drugs or not, before you know it, you look at Pacquiao now, he's not knocking anybody out anymore. So you ask yourself the question, was he on PEDs in the first place? So questions start coming out like that.
Well, can we do I'm sorry, you've already been here for a long time. Well, we'll do the proper boxing interview. Now, if you want my thoughts on Pacquiao Mayweather, I'll give you my thoughts, and I'll also give you who thinks going to win. And make sure you ask me about David Haye too. But first, since you brought up Pacquiao Mayweather, I'll give you my thoughts. First, I'll give you my general outlay on the cherry picking and all the bullshit talk about cherry picking and everything. Right? People say Mayweather's. See, this is what a real journalist looks at, and I think I'm a real journalist. People say Mayweather's afraid of Pacquiao. I say, okay. You go through it in your mind. You go through, what is he afraid of? Is he afraid of the power? Pacquiao doesn't have power anymore. He hasn't had a KO since, in over 5 years, since 2009. He hasn't had a KO. Is he afraid of the speed? Pacquiao's slowing down. Is he afraid of the volume punching? Well, Pacquiao only throws in 30-second spurts now in rounds. So, it's not the 100 punches around like he had when he was, he was going up the featherweight super featherweight ranks and into early welterweight when he fought, De La Hoya and Margarito. In fact, and I wrote this in an article. I'm not just. You can look it up. I'm not, making this up now to make me sound good in hindsight or anything like that. After the Shane Mosley fight, Eastside Boxing called it Pacquiao's slowing down as a fighter. I liked the original title I gave it, but they changed the title. Mm-hmm. I called it Pacquiao's prime plummets. I said after the Shane Mosley fight that Pacquiao's prime was over, and even though he's fought well since then, I still believe that Pacquiao's prime ended, and both he changed as a fighter in psyche, and I don't care what anyone says, after the Margarito fight, and now he just fights to dominate them, and he doesn't really want to... Yes, the power's a little bit of the power's gone too, but also he doesn't have the killer instinct that he used to have. And I know, everyone says that, but there was proof about that again in the Chris Algieri fight. Because I don't know, whatever round it was, 9/10 or what, he could have finished Chris Algieri off, but if you remember, I'm pretty sure he backed away or he backed off and looked at the referee again for a second. And I said to myself, yeah, I'm right. He might be able to win these fights. He might be able to dominate some of these fighters just on pure talent, but he hasn't had the killer instinct since he almost killed Margarito in the ring.
Almost killed Margarito in the ring. That's funny.
Perhaps I'm overstating it a bit.
But Margarito got a beating.
He did a job on Margarito, and Margarito was never the
same fighter.
Never the same. And it's both Pacquiao has changed as a person since then, and I've got some theories on why he's changed, but you know about them privately, and I would never say it on air. And I've also got some theories about why he stuck with Bob Arum, but we won't go.
Here we go. Yeah.
We won't go with that because I'll get absolutely crucified. But yeah, is Mayweather afraid of Pacquiao? My long-winded answer to that question, I would say, is definitely no. And I don't think you would. I don't want to presume what you think, but I've seen your videos, and I don't think you think that's the case either. I think it's more of a case of Mayweather wanting total control of the promotion side, and he knows he's not going to get that with Bob Arum. Plus, he hates Bob Arum. Yep. I believe that if Pacquiao
left Arum,
left the contract like he should have done it. What was it? The end of 2012. Refresh my memory. The end of 2012 after the Bradley fight.
Yep.
His contract was up. I believe if he left Bob Arum, then we would have the fight already. Because if you believe that it's a stupid thing to believe, but if you believe that Mayweather's afraid of Pacquiao, everything that Mayweather would have been afraid of is gone, Ingram. It's gone.
He fought Cotto and people thought he was ducking Cotto. And they said, he didn't fight a good Cotto. So what's Cotto now then? Then he said he didn't fight, then he's ducking Canelo. He put a beating on Canelo. Then it was Maidana. He beat Maidana in the rematch. So what's it now? Khan?
Well, Khan. Go on, ask me a question. Go on. Ask me whether I think that Khan's going to get the fight first or whether he'll go straight to Pacquiao. Ask me.
Don't have to ask you. We know he's going to go to Pacquiao.
Well, yeah, I because of so many cancellations and so many, I don't think it's over the line yet. Yes, it's a hell of a lot closer than it was, and yes.
I think it's going to happen. There was an advertisement recently, a Foot Locker commercial, where Pacquiao turns around and says, he's going to fight me, he's going to fight me. Yes, he's going to fight me. Have you not seen the commercial?
What's Pacquiao taking? I heard that it's not going to be like, it's going to be 30% or something or less. So, you know, I mean, it's what do you think he's going to be taking?
It's not what he's taking, it's what Aram's going to be taking, and then giving to Pacquiao afterwards.
Thanks for saying that, and thanks for going in the boat with me, and you know, but I agree with you with that. I am, of course, I've got theories why, but I am absolutely astounded why hasn't Leave Bob Arum. In fact, if you remember years ago, I wrote this in one of my first articles. He was going to leave. Well, he signed an MOU with Oscar De La Hoya, I believe, at the end of 2007, wasn't it? So that was the first time he was going to leave. And that led to the Cold War, the legal dispute over the Pacquiao contract and the Cold War, and then he was going to leave one or two other times. Now, it's astounding why Pacquiao hasn't left, because he doesn't get the pay packets he should get. Now, if he was an independent fighter, Pacquiao could fight anybody and make big money. He wouldn't be stuck to the top ranked stable, which has been desolate for 147 guys. And yeah, we might be getting some fights now, and Pacquiao might be making some more money if they work with Golden Boy, but it's too late now because he's got the tax problems, everything like that. Money's going to be going to Arum, and the rest is going to be going to tax. So, you know, Pacquiao isn't making the money he should have made earlier, which perhaps he wouldn't be in this trouble.
Right.
So I'm astounded that he never left Bob Arum, and there can only be one or two reasons for that. Extreme. I can say I'll say this, and I should be allowed to say this much without getting killed. Either extreme loyalty to Bob Arum, naivety from Pacquiao to a certain extent, and I don't mean to be denigrating towards Pacquiao because I think he's a great guy, but he's naive to a certain extent, and that's been evidenced by Michael Carnes being left on staff. Bob Arum has got leverage against Manny Pacquiao, and he's holding things over him, and you know which one I believe's the one that's doing the most damage.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what Bob Arum's done, whether he's bought him out of some debts, whether he's paid off people or whatever, I believe that's closer to the mark, and that's the only reason he hasn't become independent.
Right.
Because Manny Pacquiao doesn't need a promoter. He doesn't need to go to Golden Boy or anything like that. He can promote himself. He's a brand himself. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need any promoter. So, and if that was Bob Arum's idea, for him to fight Chris Algieri, then Bob Arum's losing the goddamn plot anyway. I did an interview, yeah, you could say, but I did an interview with Jeff Mayweather on the lead up to that, and even I knew, but you've got to ask the question because you're a journalist. I said, why, no disrespect to Chris Algieri, but I said, what is Pacquiao doing fighting Chris Algieri? He's no name. Sorry, Chris. He's no name. He's not an exciting fighter. He doesn't have the market base of a Mexican or a Puerto Rican or anything like that. And there can be no win out of that fight. And I think that is an evidence of how little respect HBO even paid the fight when they only had 124/7 and some weird special like Under the Lights or whatever it was. With a couple of trainers, HBO knew it wasn't going to do any buys, right? And it come out that I think it's done 300,000 buys of HBO won't even release the proper numbers there. They're that embarrassing. And if Bob Arum thought that Pacquiao was going to get a fight with Mayweather, or there's a chance, why would he give Pacquiao even less leverage by setting up a fight against Chris Algieri? That does not make any goddamn sense. And I'm pretty sure I heard an interview with Bob Arum saying that he thought the Chinese would eat it up and it would do 700,000 pay-per-view buys. 700,000 pay-per-view buys? What planet is he on? Like, I even knew before this fight, I said, it's only going to do 250, 300. But I'm not taking credit for that and doing cartwheels. Everyone with a brain, any credible journalist knew that.
Mm-hmm. See, I think that the whole thing of Arum, I think that Arum's trying to keep him away. Arum's trying to keep Pacquiao away because he knows if Mayweather beats Pacquiao, that's it.
Yes, look, I agree. And when the fight happens, it'll be when Arum's prepared to risk the cash out, and boy, aren't I going to get in trouble for saying that. But it's more to the point. What was the tell me, Ingram? Because I can't even fathom. I like to think I know a little bit about what I'm talking. What was the rationale behind the Chris Algieri fight?
The rationale. Well, I'll tell you what the rationale was. I think when they picked the Algieri fight in the beginning and arranged it, they thought the HBO would pick it up. They thought it would make major sales. People won't accept the fact that Pacquiao's fighting these guys anymore. People want to see Pacquiao versus Mayweather, and so therefore they want Pacquiao versus Mayweather. They're fed up of Bob Arum, and they want it to happen so much that they say, you know what, we're not going to support these fights anymore. So therefore, we're going to show you how much we're going to protest by just doing what we do. And let's see you try and sell a fight without our support. So the next fight has got to be with Mayweather. That's my suspicions.
So you reckon that even if they match, for the sake of argument, let's put a Golden Boy top rank fight together with Pacquiao. Let's say they work together and actually. So you're saying that even if they match Pacquiao up with an exciting fighter that he could beat, let's say that's you could mark it as being a threat.
They want Pacquiao Mayweather. The world wants Pacquiao Mayweather. Let's be honest. That's the fight, and everybody gets a great bit of money out of it. 100 million. No, I believe. Go ahead.
You don't even reckon, say, a Pacquiao Danny Garcia itself.
What does that prove?
Nothing, but.
Then Garcia got beat by Herrera, right?
Yes.
Right,
yes.
Well, there you go. So that doesn't prove anything, does it? So as far as I'm concerned, the only fight out there is Pacquiao Mayweather. That's the only fight the world wants to see. So HBO have done what they've done to say, you know what? This is your last duck. After this, you've got to fight Mayweather.
All right. You'll be dying for my thoughts on David Haye, so let's just get this out of the road. And but David Haye, look, I know you've probably got yourself a misinterpretation of what I think about David Haye due to some of the tweets, some of the comments I've made in the past, and that I don't dislike David Haye because I'm a journalist. I'm not a boxing fan. I'll tell you what. A lot of people, I'll tell you what a lot of people out there think about what I think about David Haye. A lot of boxing fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's the biggest prick tease in the entire boxing world. And what I mean by that is, you get excited about a David. Like, it's like, let me give you a hypothetical situation, right, as far as David Haye's concerned. And let me go with this, right? You go back, I want you to go back to your high school days, Ingram. I know you're a happily married man now, but I'm sure that, there's a girl back in high school that you had a crush on, that you wanted to go out, you wanted to sleep with, whatever else, right? She calls you up. You're really excited. You put your best suit on. you think after 10 years, I might be in a chance with this. You get yourself limbered up, you get yourself really excited, you put your suit on, she tells you, I want to meet at this restaurant, and you turn up at the restaurant, and you're all wired up, and she doesn't turn up, all right? And she gets this phone call, you get this phone call saying, I met the old boyfriend and blah, 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 went out for drinks, sorry, I'm not turning up. Or even worse than that, your mother finds out which restaurant you're at, and she turns up, tries to cheer you up, which is even worse, right? David Hay, and all you end up doing is going home full of sweat, full of shame, knowing that you've got your dick in your hand again. That's what David Hay does. And people are sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of it. We know David Hay's got talent. We know he can fight. Let's just see him fight. I'm sick of all the talk. I'm sick of all the hype. I just want to see him fight in the ring. And to be honest with you, David Hay talks, and people want to listen to hear what he has to say. That's fine. I'm sick of hearing it. It's time to move on from the press conferences into the fights, David. And if you fight well, I'm going to give you credit for it. All right? But until then, you haven't been at a fight for 2 years. And before that, you made all this hype about the T-shirt with the Klitschko's saying you're going to rip their head off, right? You went around for someone with a broken toe. You ran around enough, and then you grab onto Klitschko, and then you fall down, and then you try and get points taken off, and then you end up getting points taken off yourself. David, you embarrassed yourself. You came back. You fought well against Chisora, which I gave you credit for, I might add. I think there were extending circumstances due to that, because I think that was the time period when Chisora's mind was out of his head. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he hit Don Charles, or went to hit Don Charles in a training session leading up to that. I would like to see David Hay fought a good Derek Chisora with his mind on the job. But nevertheless, he won that fight. I gave him credit for that. Since then, injury or not, he's pulled out 2 fights with Tyson Fury.
Don't forget Manuel Shah as well.
Yeah, Manuel Shah. But we both knew that. We both talked about, because tickets weren't selling, that he was going to pull out of that, right? He pulls out of that. Then suddenly his hands miraculously get better. Ingram, his hands miraculously get better. He signs the fight with Tyson Fury, and injury or not, I'm not going to open myself up. He pulls out of it, right? Right? Now, I've just look. The thing about David Hay is, decide whether you want to be a celebrity that goes on a program with Bear Grylls, out into the jungle or whatever. Or decide whether you want to be a fighter, and decide what you want to do. Stop disrespecting the sport, either intentionally or not, and just fight. Otherwise, David, I don't want to hear about you, because you're irrelevant to me at the moment, to be honest, until you actually do something. And, by do something, that's not going on Dancing on Ice on Channel 4 on the UK or whatever else. It's actually fighting. Whoa, that felt good. I've been wanting to say that for a long time. That felt really good. I've been wanting someone to ask me about David Hay for a long time, so as I could get it off my chest. But David, 2015, I hope that you actually go in the ring and show the talent you've got, because we know that you've got talent, but it's about time you actually did it. And stop talking about it. And, if you are signing with Al Heyman must have spoke to him and asked him about his body and everything else, because Al Heyman doesn't make mistakes in them. He doesn't make mistakes. And at the moment, do you know what David Hay is? at the moment he's an Alfa Romeo. He looks good on the outside, but you open up the bonnet and he breaks down after 1,000 Ks. Now, if he's going to do that, Al Heyman wouldn't sign him.
I heard a rumour that he priced himself out of a potential fight with Povetkin.
Yeah, well, it's just I just get so frustrated with David Haye because it's, you get excited, Ingram. You get built up for a big fight, and like I'm not as gullible as some of the rest of the boxing fans, but you still get excited. Whoever you thought won that fight with Tyson Fury would have been a huge fight, and everyone that would have been one of the biggest pay-per-view sales in history, in my opinion, right? For people who wanted to see Tyson Fury knock Haye out, for people who wanted to see, whether they think Pretty Boy Haye got knocked out or whatever, that just would have been a huge fight, and that was robbed, from the boxing fan. And that fight is never going to happen, and that's just a shame, because I know as long as they were dealt with in a straight line, Peter and Tyson would take it. So there's no qualms there, and it's just a shame, because that would have been up there with, whether it would have lived up to the press clippings, I don't know, but that would have been.
I think Fury would have beaten him. I really do.
Yeah, and it also would have been up there with, your Ben Eubanks, your Lewis Brunos. It would have surpassed Lewis Bruno, in my opinion. That's how big it would have been.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's just a shame. Like, I want to believe that David Haye's a genuine person and genuinely regretful and everything like that. And I know you've spoken to him, which I haven't, so I'll give you that much. But look, at the moment, if David Haye rang me up and said, the sun's coming up at 7:15 in the morning in London, if David Haye rang me and gave me that phone call, on previous reputation, I would then have to ring Ingram Jones up and say, Ingram, what time is the sun coming up? Because David Haye told me this.
Yeah.
That's just the way I feel.
But the one thing is, you got to love his press conferences.
But what is it? What is it with David Haye? Is he genuine? Or is it like he gets into the press conference and as the time for the fight gets closer and closer, does he think, oh my God, the fight's happening, and I'm not sure if I really want to do it. The reason why I like Tyson's press conferences as opposed to David Haye's, and I don't mind David Haye's either, but the reason why I like Tyson's better is he talks it and then he goes and
does it.
People out there, right? They'll bag Audie Harrison for his performances in big fights and stuff like that. But I'll tell you the difference between, at the moment, David Haye and Audie Harrison. Audie Harrison might choke when he gets into a fight and get knocked, but at least he turns up.
That's true.
And that's the difference.
Very true. Very true. Very true. Very true.
And I just want to see David Haye get in there, prove to really mean what he says, and that he's sorry for to the fans, and give a good performance, because it's about time. It's about time he gave back to the fans, and if he was a really, I'm going to tell you that he's not going to do it. I don't believe he's going to do it, but if you do it, David, I'll apologise. That he owes the British fans and he owes the Furies that fight. If he's really genuine about wanting to change the things of the past and what he's done, he has to fight Tyson Fury. That's what he has to. He has to fight Tyson Fury. Everyone is owed that fight. I don't care how self-congratulated that sounded or anything like. Everybody has owed that fight, and I believe that fight has to happen, and it's up to David whether that happens, because Tyson will do it. If the right money's there, Tyson will do it, and Tyson will want to pay him for what he. Tyson and Peter will want to pay David Haye back for what they believe to be shafting or not.
Yep.
And I'll tell you right now, Tyson, whether it happens or not, I don't know. But I'll tell you right now, Tyson will take that fight if it's guaranteed that David Haye will show up, because Tyson will want to knock David Haye into a black hole. I can tell you that now.
Absolutely. He'll want to do what Vladimir Klitschko couldn't do. And I believe he's got the ability to do it.
Anyway, Ingram, I gave you plenty of quotes in that lot, mate. I have plenty to work with.
Yep, 2 hours and 10 minutes.
I'm sure David Haye will love me.
Rob, it's been a pleasure talking to you as always.
I'm sure I'll get an interview. I'm sure I'll get that interview with David Haye. I'm sure that's happening. Yeah. Wouldn't it be an interesting one, wouldn't it, Ingram? I'm sure if I got David Haye, that's one you'd listen to.
Absolutely.
All right, mate. Look, David, do what we all know you can do, because we all know you've got boxing talent, and it's a shame that it's being wasted. And if you do come back into the ring, give that fight to Tyson Fury and to the rest of the boxing public. I'm putting that declaration right here, right now, on Bayloric TV.
Thank you so much, Rob.
No worries.